Welcome to Real Life and Archetypes. My name is Marina. So today I want to talk about a specific scene of a show that I just discovered. I didn't know it existed. So that's SAS Rogue Heroes, and it's based on a book by Ben McIntyre. I hope I'm pronouncing this well. I haven't read the book, but because I posted about it on my Twitter, somebody, showed up to educate me on a few things, a few controversial things about the show, and particularly about how the character of Patty Maine was misrepresented and the family was a little bit displeased by that. And that, he was basically represented as a drunk, brute drunk. And I agree, that's actually the impression that was left on me. So I thought, it's a valid criticism, especially from the family and for a subject that is so serious. Now, when I watch creative work, I know it is fiction. So for me, that's how I take it. And when it says, based on or inspired by true events, I take it with a huge grain of salt. But the subject was very interesting. And because it was about the inception of the SAS, which is something that I was looking at, and that's how I came upon this TV show. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I really enjoyed it, okay? There are a few things that were a little weird for me. But overall, I think, a work like that, a creative work, is going to bring people to, bring more eyes and more curiosity to the subject. I was actually quite surprised because I don't know, I don't know much. I'm quite an ignorant and I'm always learning new things. I had no idea of the role and the crucial role that the SAS played in World War II. I mean, I never even thought about that. I didn't know that it was created back then. So the whole thing was actually interesting to me, and I definitely want to delve into more knowledge of that. So I was actually, directed to look at books by Damian Lewis, who is quite knowledgeable on the subject, and there are others, but he has had also access to material from Patty Maine's family. So, diaries and letters and very personal stuff about Patty Maine. And this is an interesting part because there was a scene in the show that to me felt a little off and very odd. And I pay attention to storytelling devices, as they're called, or storytelling methods and techniques. I'm very interested because I do not have that talent and I wish I had. So there was a scene in particular where it seemed that they were implying that the Patty Maine was gay. And that scene in particular, to me, came out of nowhere and it went nowhere, which is a big no-no in storytelling, by the way. So that was very odd to me because I do pay attention to, how coherent it is story-wise. And I thought it was very odd. It was not, the theme of the show. It was something else. And to put that there, it was bizarre. So when I finished watching, I went to research and I watched a show where Damian Lewis was talking with other people, and that's on the channel of World War II TV on YouTube, which I recommend. There are more shows that I want to watch. It seems very interesting. But they actually, in that panel, they were talking in particular about that and how they did not know where that came from either, because Damian Lewis was saying, and I'll put the link below to the show and exactly where he talks about it, so you have the good reference. He says that he's never seen in anything he's researched or the people he's talked to in Patty Maine's private letters and diaries, he's never seen anything that pointed at that thing, that the fact that Patty Maine might have been a closeted gay. And that really upset me because I thought, why did it put that? And then there was another guy, former SAS, I think his name is Chris Ryan. I hope I'm saying it right. And also in the same show, I will also link exactly where he mentions that, but he said that it was some academic who suddenly put out this kind of theory about Patty Maine. It may not sound important, but it is important because when you have a real character, and especially about something in history that affects us all in so many ways, I'll get back to that in a moment. I think you wonder, why would you put something like that? And especially because in the story, like I said, it just came out of nowhere and went nowhere. And now that I hear these people who are actually knowledgeable, very deep into investigating history and these characters, and you have this guy saying, I have never seen anything like it. I've heard references about Patty Maine, maybe going for women of a certain type. Again, in the show, you'll hear about that, but certainly nothing that pointed at some kind of sexual aspect of him that would explain all of the rage, because that's, to me, when I watched the show, it seemed that that's where they were going, because they did emphasize on that character, an amount of energy and like really brute force. And when they put that thing in the middle, it really felt like they wanted to explain it by that there was some repression. So to me, that feels a little bit reductive and retrograde, by the way, because that's the kind of theory that, would circulate decades ago, when psychology was still a bit reductive and they were trying to explain, homosexuality as a disease, whether it's because he had a stern mother and therefore he became gay. Well, it doesn't make any sense at all. You have, for one case like that, you have 100,000 cases where people are not gay because their mother is severe, or the father, or whatever. And it's a little bit odd. So I agree that, they could have made an effort to be more accurate and more respectful to the truth, because there is a lot of material to put that character, who is, by all accounts, I will have to read some books, he was a very interesting and compelling person. Also, the miscast, he was very tall and he would tower over everybody. And in the show, you don't see that. They did cast David Sterling as somebody tall. He was tall, so that was good. But for Patty Maine, they didn't. And so I agree that, he was represented as two-dimensional, just brute. And it was a little strange. I felt that watching the show. So I think they missed an opportunity there because the character, by all accounts, in real life, was actually a very interesting person in so many ways. Another thing in the show that I was like I found a little off-putting was the character of Yves Mansour. So Yves Mansour is not based on a real character. She's totally fictional. They made her for the show. I guess they wanted to put, a female, somebody who looked good, always has really beautiful clothes, even on the front lines, which is a little weird. And I found, to me, it was like a missed opportunity to really delve into the aspect of intelligence. That's what I expected when she showed up. I thought, okay, this is going to be, the trickery of the world of intelligence. There's also another character, and now the name escapes me. I will print it on the screen. Dudley Clark, I think his name is. And this is a character that we do see on the show. And again, I would have liked to have more of that theme in the show, more of the intelligence and, particular methods. So it felt a little bit too much on the surface, especially with the character of Yves Mansour. But anyway, let's just move forward. The reason that, these subjects, World War II, are so interesting to so many of us. I'll speak for myself. In my own family, it is a big subject because I was born and raised in France, and French father, Spanish mother. So both my parents were children of war. My mother's village in Spain was bombarded. She was separated in the chaos from her family. I mean, a lot of drama. These people experienced horrors and, hunger, loss, destruction, everything. And on the part of my father, also the shame of the Vichy collaboration. He always spoke about that. He was horrified. He thought it was the most shameful thing for the country. And he was, in awe of General de Gaulle. By the way, that's the character of Yves Mansour is like all the time General de Gaulle, General de Gaulle. And it's her role is just being basically a love interest. It's such a missed opportunity. But anyway, my father's aunt, she was actually a member of the French resistance. She got 2 Légion d'honneur. Those are medals granted by the government for her acts of valor. I also have, documents of General Eisenhower also praising her. And she was quite a character. I don't remember her. I don't even know if I actually met her. We are so many in the family, and she was quite a loner as a person. And she did not get along with her sister, who was our grandmother. So there was a lot of, things going on. But she was quite a character. And what happened, and this is, those stories are just extraordinary, but I want to delve into much more important stuff behind the things that are interesting and inspiring and quite amazing. So my great aunt, she would hide. This is what the person, when she was being given a medal, she had someone from her group tell the story, and it was in the newspaper in an article. And I think it was his speech. So he described her as somebody who would hide Allied soldiers. And on that day where she was caught, somebody reported her to the Gestapo. And she was hiding an American soldier who had parachuted a few days before. And somebody warned her that they were going to capture her and arrest her, but she remained behind. That's what you read in the article. She remained behind to burn all the documents that would reveal the identities of, her brothers in the movement. So she was captured, probably tortured, who knows, and she was sent to concentration camp in Germany. She was later liberated by the Americans. And I remember I had somewhere scanned her some document or ticket from the train, and she weighed 34 kilos, and I don't know how much that is in pounds, but that would be like 70 pounds, I guess, something like that, on her way back. So she was quite emaciated. And God knows what happened in the concentration camp, but she was traumatized from what my father said to me. It's a silent generation. We don't know much. This is an important subject, by the way, the fact that there was all of this silence, because I think it's also connected to the subject of PTSD, which is where I'm going with the scene that I want to show you, and to talk about the concept of humanity, PTSD, warriors. In the show, what I find interesting is that they do show several aspects. It certainly is an uplifting show. It's quite entertaining, so it's not the same vibe as Band of Brothers, okay? Band of Brothers, I watched many years ago when it came out. I think I watched 3 episodes, so I couldn't finish it because for me it was overwhelming. But it was an amazing show. I mean, anybody who's watched it knows what I'm talking about. It was really incredible, but it was just too much for me. And that's the thing. This is a subject, World War II, for us European, it's actually it's a subject that is very in our lives. And it's quite amazing the impact that something you haven't experienced has on you, on how you grow up and how you're shaped in life and the things that you have to deal with. And this is what I want to talk about, because for me, the concept of humanity, I want to contrast, by the way, with how people, especially in Europe, because in the United States, the military, soldiers and things like that, it's part of the culture. People are open to that and they celebrate their military. In Europe, it's not like that at all. It's like you don't know who they are. You have no idea. And I don't know if perhaps after World War II, also there's kind of a reluctance to, display anything military and flags and things like that. I wonder if that plays a part in that. I think so. So flags show up only, when you watch football or soccer, as Americans like to call it. But usually, other than that, it's like hidden somewhere because it's a sensitive thing. And so is, the military or even special forces. In France, we do have good special forces. So they've shown up, a bunch of times. It showed up a bunch of times to do extraordinary things. So people are aware of them. But, it's actually a subject where a lot of people would say, well, these, special forces guys are like psychopaths and things like that. And when you delve into that, I watch a lot of interviews of special forces. I find them very interesting and compelling. And I think it's an incredible testimony that we're having from people who have first-hand experiences in combat and all kinds of missions, which require, a will, a determination, skill, intelligence, and bravery and everything that you can imagine. And yes, there are probably some of them who you would maybe diagnose. I don't think that actually there is a diagnosis of that, but that you would consider maybe psychopathic or things like that. But to me, because of my own experiences, I look at things in a very different way, because I actually consider that there are a lot of sociopathic or psychopathic or whatever we call that in the popular culture, not that it's a diagnosis. They are everywhere and in every shape and form. And sometimes when you look at these special forces, who to me are very particular, because these are people who are really doing what they want to do, because it takes, the selection is going to remove and weed out people who are not fully determined to be there. And they are doing what they want, what they love. Okay, so everything that happens in their experiences is something that they're very aware of, and that makes their testimonies very interesting to me. And I make a lot of videos about them because there's a very personal component for me. There's a reason why I do that. But when I watched in season 2 of SAS Rogue Heroes, episode 5, there's a particular scene that really, really touched me. And this is where I love to pay attention to storytelling devices, because there's a particular character. At the beginning of of season 2, it's quite amazing the way they showed it. But again, this show is very energetic, okay? It's not like Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers is really, it's an immersion in the harsh reality of war, which, by the way, it feels real, and it's weird to say something like that about a reality that you don't know. But the fact that they show hardships, that's what makes it feel real, okay? As opposed to, just the heroic or the very bling bling things of action heroes and glamorization of these things. It's hard, okay? In this show, they do show a bunch of aspects, and I think that's great, but it's still an engaging show. Okay, it's a different tone, but I really enjoyed it. I recommend that you watch it and then you look for all kinds of information about these guys, because I was blown away. I did not know what they did for the liberation of Europe. I was blown away. So there's this scene. I don't want to spoil. Okay, I'm going to spoil a little bit, but not too much. But so at the beginning of season 2, some things happen, and you start to see some things that are going to play a part in the development of what we call nowadays PTSD. And it's very well done, in my opinion. I don't want to spoil it, but we arrive at season 2, episode 5, so pretty much at the end of season 2, and they choose a character in particular to really delve a little more into this subject. This is what storytelling is about. So that's why, for me, when I look at creativity, that's what I think about. They have to use these devices. There are some things that are based in reality a lot, others that it's like a combination, okay, from different characters in real life. They put it in another character in the show, things like that. So now they choose a character called Reg Seekings, and this is the one that I want to show in the images. And this character, they already start to set him in a context where something happens, okay? And a lot of the guys, spoiler alert, this is spoiler now, a lot of the guys of the SAS, they die. And just before that happens, Reg Seekings was left behind, and he had spent a bit of time with a family, so in closeness to a human family. That's very important, because this is about being human, okay? And so this is very well done in the storytelling of this show. They set this scene up so that this guy, he starts to show symptoms of PTSD. He's not sleeping, so exhaustion, not sleeping, the ghosts of war. And think for a moment, I think everybody would accept that, but think for a moment how nowadays we're all talking about stress and how we need to exercise and sleep well and eat well and all of that stuff. And we're talking about normal lives. These guys were in the theater of war, and just physically, the noise, the explosions, how it destroys your body, and then attacking, and the missions that they carried out for 5 years, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And then you have, the psychological, the emotional, and the spiritual consequences and wounds that are going to develop. So Reg Seekings is going to carry, all of the issues of PTSD. And there's a scene where they're burying their brothers who died. And this is a ritual. And a ritual is very important in life. So whether it's, a wedding, a baptism, or whatever you do, a ritual is something that is going to let you know that something is happening or has happened, and it takes you on another another level of life, because, and especially, a burial, for example, you're going to really internalize something because you have that ritual. Otherwise, it's going to feel maybe that, who knows if that happened, it sort of fades away. But when you have rituals, it really marks the event, and it's actually a very important thing to do. So I'm going to show you the images because it's a very interesting moment of the show. So this is the moment of the burial. We have the SAS members who are reciting the names of those who have fallen, and it's Reg Sergeant Reginald Seekings' turn to read 3 names, but he actually says all of the names of everyone who's fallen, and now he starts to include his own name. And everybody is shocked because he's saying right here, look at his face. I mean, the performance is amazing. He is really destroyed. He was already feeling out of himself. You know, he was really struggling, not sleeping. And they were already showing that little by little in the show. And this is the culmination here. Now, the pain of losing so many members. The good thing about the show is that they chose to actually read all the names of everyone who fell. So these are the real people who died. The event is actually something that actually happened. So Sergeant Reginald Seekings, I don't know if this actually happened, this scene, but a lot of members of the SAS died, and they did read the names in the show. So I don't know if they're buried in that place in Italy, but this is what the show is depicting now. So Sergeant Reginald Seekings, he's saying his name. And now there's one of his brothers who says, don't you dare put your name on that list, Reg, because of course, effectively by saying his own name, he's putting his name in the list of dead. Now, to the right here in this image, you see Patty Maine. This is the character of Patty Maine, who is the commander of this SAS regiment here. And Reg Seekings, it continues to say names. Now, it's not just his name. He's saying names of other brothers who are alive. And now they're getting very nervous. Pull yourself together, will you? Another one says. And now Reg has said the name of his commander, Patty Maine, and Patty Maine is confronting him, taunting him to dare to say his name again, and Reg says his name again, Patty Maine. And look at his face now. This is just an amazing scene. He's broken and destroyed, and he's telling Patty Maine, his commander, put me at the front. Put me in first. Put me where I won't last a day. Every night lasts 10 years. I can't live that long. Every night lasts 10 years because he can't sleep. So it's eternal, and I can't live that long. Now you're making sense. This is Patty Maine saying that. Now you're making sense. And Reg says, send me with a bayonet, Patty. And Patty replies, here we see the final stages of a process. He's trying to, lift the spirit or something, I don't know, but it's not working. The living soldier who wants to be on that list, that's Patty saying that. So now this is, you're truly unstoppable because now you're okay with dying. That's what Patty says. But it's not working with anybody. Nobody's responding to that pep talk, and especially Reg. He says, we are not human anymore, Patty. So this is, the moment that to me really was incredibly impactful. And I'm just going to leave it there, not to spoil it for anyone. So just go and watch. So PTSD, this is a concept that for us is completely normal nowadays, especially more and more recently, I have to say. It hasn't been always like that. I love the fact that we're seeing so many interviews of people who have had firsthand experiences. Instead of getting the history from the top down, we're getting the history from, the people who actually did the stuff, not those who had the cocktails and, moved the chess pieces. Something that we can see in, at work all the time, that kind of, you do the work and the others are having their cocktails. But this concept of PTSD back then, when they came back from the war, it wasn't in the culture. Carl Jung was just starting to develop all the stuff. I thank him for the concept of archetypes, obviously. I think he's not like Freud. For those who, don't know the distinction, this is not Freud. he separated himself from Freud because Freud was just, whatever he was. But Carl Jung was way more interesting and always, posing questions and very spiritual also about his work and his explorations. But his concepts at that time were not in the culture. Nowadays, we go and have coffee and we talk about absent father, stripper. We just go straight there because we have already assimilated all of these concepts, psychological concepts, and they're still evolving. Like I said, in the beginning, when I was talking about that scene with Patty Maine and that some academic a couple of decades ago maybe said something that, maybe he was gay because he was so, so strong and such a brute according to probably their point of view. I look at things completely differently, obviously. But, we always keep evolving. So for me, now that we have more and more access to information, and you can look at it in a negative way and look at the positive of it, which is that we have access to a lot more stories of human beings. And, I really admire people who have to do things that are so difficult to do, who put their lives on the line, by the way, and who have that humanity. And I really look for that stuff. And I see it a lot in these special forces guys. So humanity is incredibly important because without humanity, we're not going to experience anything other than survival mode. So humanity is important. And what they did for us, these people in, the first SAS regiments and everybody who contributed in the war. And, as an aside, I was talking before about Yves Mansour, the character of Yves Mansour. I mean, if you want to put a woman and, do something about it, Jesus Christ, there were so many amazing women who did incredible things, just like so many incredible men, okay? A lot of people contributed to the world that we benefit from today. And they were really, really messed up and suffered a lot and sacrificed a lot for us to be able to have the world that we live in today. So I'll probably expand on this. There's a lot that I would love to talk about, but for me, I just want to honor these people, the SAS, everybody who participated and helped us live better effectively. And yeah, I think that, if you make a show about them and you find that somebody has a lot more aspects to them than just being drunk and being a brute, by all means incorporate that and honor that person, do that for them. I think it's a proper way to say thank you because these people were just destroyed. And we can't even begin to imagine. Normal people like us, we cannot begin to imagine what they have to go through. I mean, nowadays, we've had a few wars, but it's not in our backyard. So maybe we know people who have been to wars, and special forces, when they do their thing, we don't see anything. We don't have to suffer anything. They put their lives on the line in memory of everyone who has done so much for people that they don't even know. It's a huge subject. I'll go back to it. But for now, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.